Mercedes-Benz has been enjoying great sales figures recently, explains our carman Reinhold, and confidence leads to daring something new. Carmakers like looking at what their neighbors are up to. Some time ago, Mercedes-Benz brought out the CLS four-door coupe, and suddenly there was a corresponding model from BMW. This time, it was BMW that first launched the X6, and now Mercedes have an SUV coupe too, a new edition of the GLE. Let's see what it's got. We tested the souped-up AMG version, which delivers 270 kilowatts of output and 520 newton-meters of torque. The 3.0-liter twin-turbo V6 engine drives the 2.2-tonner to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.7 seconds. Official fuel consumption is 8.9 liters for 100 kilometers, with CO2 emissions at 209 grams per kilometer. Reinhold praises the workmanship, and there are now 5 suspension modes, ranging from Dynamic Sport Plus to Slippery for poor conditions. He also loves the stylish presentation of engine data in the central display. The 9-speed automatic transmission in the GLE translates into maximum power delivery. On the practical side, you can use paddles instead of the accelerator to shift down from 9th to 5th when you need to overtake quickly. The new GLE has indisputable SUV credentials that set it apart from most other coupes. Among the design highlights, black wing mirrors and window surrounds the AMG front apron and the 21-inch AMG alloy wheels. And that AMG badge means this beefcake can really let rip and roar. And let's not forget that AMG rear apron. What started as an M-Class now has the G-Class designation, with the last initial a hint at the E-Class segment. There's ample cargo capacity between 650 and 1,720 liters, but its high rear sill does get in the way. The interior of the 450 AMG is plush indeed, as befits the target clientele. The central monitor sits atop the dashboard. The sports steering wheel is clad in Napa leather with aluminum trim, and the AMG edition has sports seats up front. Reinhold sees the Mercedes-Benz GLE Coupe as a more handsome X6, although it shares similar problems to the BMW. The GLE is very big and heavy, weighing around 2.2 tons, which is not good for fuel economy. Rear visibility is poor. The trunk is big enough, but the big downer is the waist-high loading sill, so hauling in a crate of drinks takes a lot of muscle. The GLE 450 AMG is certainly a nice-looking option if you're into this kind of car. You can cruise in style with this baby, and the performance is awesome. It's not all good news, however. This heavy, powerful car is likely to be thirsty too, and the CO2 emissions will not please the environmentally aware. And the big points loss comes from the high loading sill. Fans of the VW van have been waiting a long time, but now the 6th generation is here. It's the latest version of a classic that's graced the world's streets for 65 years. The first generation in 1950 was based on the Volkswagen Beetle. Today's van is every bit the icon. New generations brought improvements while staying true to the original. That was a challenge for engineers and designers. Volkswagen's Albert Kiersinger says designers need to have a completely different approach for a product like this. It takes a lot of respect, but it's also a joy. For him, working on the new van was an opportunity, add yet milestone to this 65-year history. For a designer, that's an exciting challenge. Generation 6 is the name of this special edition, which harks back to the original T1 model with its two-tone paint. The engines are more efficient, but higher in performance. And the T6 has headlights with LED technology and 3-mode adaptive suspension. The design is all of a piece and pleasing to the eye. In the earlier generations, Volkswagen liked to praise the van for its double-wing side door and effortless loading, the perfect transport car for the prudent farmer. A VW van was a real workhorse and could transport anything. From human cargo to piglets, a tireless all-rounder, always ready for service. And it's still an all-rounder. But today's T6 features swiveling bucket seats and a table that can also be moved along a track, offering even more flexibility. That means the top-of-the-range Highline can be turned into a rolling conference room in just a few steps. But as Volkswagen liked to point out, the earlier generation wasn't just a workhorse. It cleaned up nicely, and lo and behold, it's ready for a weekend outing. Economical, robust, always ready for action. That was its trademark. That versatility is still a trademark. Albert Kiersinger says the van's longevity is in part because Volkswagen has always adapted the van to the times. The T1 was already a surprisingly spacious vehicle, very likable and very functional. From the beginning, the van came in many versions with many loading options, from a flatbed hauler to a minibus for passenger transport. In 1967, the second-generation T2 went on the market. By then, around 2/3 of the vans were destined for the export market. Permanent four-wheel drive was introduced with the T3 in 1979. That made the van a perfect companion, even off-road. The engine moved to the front with the T4. This 1990 model was completely redesigned. And this is the T5, the van we've known and loved for the past 12 years. Albert Kiersinger says the van's function is always being redefined. The T6 has a flexible interior system, but is still designed to perform well on the roads. There's new technology that has improved handling. It's constantly being reinvented, and that's a big reason for the van's continued success. People today still love their cars, if the car loves their smartphone, but more on that in a moment. In the interior, the T6 sports some colorful touches, echoing the exterior. You could even say the VW van is getting better with age. Over 65 years, it's grown and matured in response to new demands. For example, there's now an optional driver's assistance system with proximity sensors and city emergency braking. And the new T6 understands smartphones. No matter which model, the central display can access mobile content. And there's also something new with the navigation system. Volkswagen's Guido Schneider explains another new feature, the online traffic flow display. The map shows the flow of traffic, depicted here in red, yellow, and green. Here in Stockholm, for example, you can see it right down to street level, and that's in real time. So you always know where the traffic jams are, and the device can reroute you around congestion.
wo die Staus sind und natürlich routet sie das Gerät dann eben dynamisch diese Staus drumherum.
So it's not only practical for everyday driving, it's also great on holiday. The multivan is already on sale. Soon VW will introduce the California Camper Van. Over its 65-year history, around 12 million vans have been produced. This new generation is the next chapter in this success story. The new style Fiat 500 has sold over 1.5 million units since its launch 8 years ago. It's now been updated with enhanced technology and a subtle facelift. The entry-level model with a 1.2-liter, 51-kilowatt gasoline engine costs €12,250 in Germany. BMW introduces the second generation of the X1. The new model shares a platform with the 2 Series Active Tourer, adopting the 3-cylinder engines and front-wheel drive feature. It's 15 millimeters shorter than the previous model, but 53 millimeters higher. The X1 S-Drive 18i goes on sale in Germany in November at a price of €30,000. Why does it always have to be an SUV, asks our car reviewer Sasha. Volvo has both an SUV range, the X6, and a cross-country edition of most of its cars. And now the Volvo V60 too. It's been raised 65 millimeters and features underbody skid plates at front and back. The idea of literally lifting a regular car to theoretically make it an off-roader is not new. Audi and Skoda and others are already established in the crossover segment. In 1997, Volvo gave the V70 a raise and named it the XC70. Now here comes the cross-country edition of the relatively young V60 wagon. Seen from the side, you notice the upgraded sills right away. The wheel arches are trimmed in black plastic, and the front and rear are fitted with matte silver scuff plates. The trunk can be expanded from 430 to 1,241 liters, although that's not the biggest in its class. Inside, the V60 boasts a classic Volvo front cabin, a simple layout and distinctly Scandinavian, and very driver-friendly on the controls front. Volvo might have a number of crossover models in its range, but it didn't invent the genre. The Matra Simca Rancho was probably the first of its kind when it hit the market in 1977. Sports car maker Matra had turned the Simca 1100 into something that today we would call a compact SUV, except the term had yet to be coined back then, although there was no four-wheel drive for cost reasons. That changed when the American Motors Corporation launched its AMC Eagle just 2 years later. The body was largely taken from regular road-going cars, except it was lifted up and equipped with four-wheel drive.
There's nothing but woods and occasionally another eagle.
The Eagle has landed on all fours at American Motors.
The Volvo V60 is also available with all-wheel drive, although currently only in combination with the biggest diesel engine, the D4. We took a trip in one of the lower-powered diesel editions, the D3, and it seems to feel equally at home on or off the road. It's a really nice ride on this country road, reports Sasha, except it feels like it keeps on bobbing sometime after potholes or undulations in the road. What Sasha is missing is a switch to make the suspension a bit stiffer so that the car calms down sooner. Volvo offers off-road vehicles with the XC or cross-country badge, says spokesman Olaf Meit, and together these groups make up half of all sales in Germany. So customers like these cars that are higher off the ground and with which you are not confined to regular roads. They're multi-purpose and suit the Volvo brand character very well. Our test car has the D3 engine generating 110 kilowatts of power, combined with the 8-speed Geartronic transmission. But advantages can have a flip side. In this case, the height and weight of SUVs posing a greater danger for other road users. It's up to the individual whether they absolutely need an SUV or whether a cross-country edition will suffice. For Sasha, the higher seat position in an SUV does make sense in terms of safety. Of course, fuel consumption will be higher, but with the Volvo V60 cross-country, he can attest that it does an excellent job both on the road and on rougher terrain.
Auf der Straße und auch hier auf unbefestigten Feldwegen macht er seinen Job ausgesprochen gut.
In the GT version, the Peugeot 308 shows its meaner side. The engine suspension, interior, and equipment features are all tailored to assertive drivers without any sacrifice of comfort. Car tester Andre says this model is to France what the Golf GTI is to Germany. He'll show us what the sporty compact family car can do. The 308 GT comes with two different engines. There's a 2-liter diesel with 133 kilowatts and 6-speed automatic transmission. Alternatively, a more powerful 1.6-liter gasoline unit with a 6-speed manual transmission sporting 151 kilowatts of output. We'll check out the gasoline version. Andre finds the steering a tad soft, but one press of the sports button and it firms up, matching the car's athletic handling. The dials shift to red, and there's a sporty roar. But sadly, the sound doesn't come from the exhaust or engine. It's an artificial noise boost. From the outside, the 308 has a uniform, unobtrusive sound. Andre would rather hear the actual THP 205 engine, not a fake sound out of the loudspeakers. The engine has plenty of power, at 1,750 RPM, already delivering a maximum torque of 285 Newton meters. Compared to the regular 308, the GT chassis is 10 millimeters lower, and it features sportier shock absorbers. Andre reminds us this gasoline version is stick shift only, but it shifts smooth as butter. The gear knob might look like a design frill, but when you shift into fourth, it's ergonomic and has a nice feel. The interior of the GT is based on the premium grade features of the Allure line. The instruments are lined with trim, and the most important data shows up on a small central display. The larger monitor in the center console provides even more information and can be used to change various settings. Red stitching on the upholstery and the seats are a stylish allusion to the car's sporty qualities. Andre says this French car stands up to the German competition. It's similar to the Golf GTI in price, but the Peugeot interior is understated. Where others are brash, here we have class and elegance. It's a car you get for yourself, not to impress. In the gasoline-powered sedan version, the GT costs just under 30,000 euros in Germany. If you prefer automatic, you'll have to opt for the diesel and shell out another 2,000 euros or so. The BMW 507, a true beauty, one of the outstanding convertibles of the early post-war period. To celebrate the design icon's 60-year anniversary, the BMW Museum in Munich is putting on a special exhibition for what some consider the most beautiful BMW of all times. The show, which runs through January 16th, documents the design variations across the 507's storied history. BMW Museum Director Gabriele Fink says the show ranges from the only 507 boat ever built to an Italian version, the Michelotti, and all the way to U.S. draft designs. But this isn't a 507. It's a forerunner to the fabled Roadster, a BMW 502 sports car dating from 1954. Designed by Ernst Lof and his team, the 502 initially won accolades. But soon the complaints began to come, especially from the major U.S. importer Max Hoffmann, who said the car was too old-fashioned and unwieldy. Just a year later, the Munich automaker unveiled the BMW 507 at the IAA in Frankfurt. It was designed by Albrecht Goertz, then still an unknown. This car was noticeably more modern, and BMW was hoping for snappy sales, especially in the U.S. This freshly restored beauty sports a rather flashy paint job. Both then and now, for BMW, the customer was king. BMW's Axel Klinger-Kernlein explains, the yellow was a special request from a customer. It was the color of his wife's scarf. During restoration, BMW analyzed traces of the original paint to recreate it as authentically as possible. The BMW 507 also took part in rallies, with success. This beauty, which was restored by BMW at the customer's request, took part in the 1957 Mille Miglia. Alex Klinger-Kernlein says it was a complicated restoration. The car had already been badly restored once in the 1980s. They damaged quite a bit of the original beyond repair. The challenge for BMW was to rescue the car and restore it to the original. So, the original color, an authentic interior, body parts, and add-ons. And they also got original decals, including tax stickers, to preserve that authentic appearance. The cars on display here look like they've just rolled off the assembly line. Gleaming paintwork and polished chrome as far as the eye can see. Visually, they're perfect, but it's not just their appearance that's important. Gabriele Fink tells us more. For cars like these, history plays an important role. Only 254 copies of the 507 were built, and each one has its own story to tell. The exhibition explains that history to the audience and shows how those stories are part of what makes these cars so valuable. The boat was built in 1957 by BMW as a special request. It incorporates many of the design elements of the BMW 507. The boat even sports 150 horsepower, equivalent to the landlocked model. Today, the boat belongs to a private owner. And this car, too, is only partly related to the BMW 507. In 1957, Italian car designer Giovanni Michelotti ordered a BMW 507 and used it as the basis for his own design. It's possible he was hoping that his design would go into series production, but that didn't happen. And not all too much later, in 1959, BMW shelved the 507. But those 254 cars were enough to create a legend.